the twists, the turns, the wrinkles that have gone into this story, McGraw, beginning with the escape of El Chapo. Joaquin Guzman, this about 6 months ago, broke out of a Mexican prison with a lot of help, apparently, a professionally excavated tunnel that went for about a mile, connecting his prison cell with a safe house. And then he went out into the mountains, flown out there by somebody in an airplane. And that's apparently where he's been, in the mountains of Sinaloa. That's where he was captured on Friday, the day after that. The Rolling Stone interview with him was published, an interview conducted, as you said, about 3 months ago by Sean Penn.
All right, so did Sean Penn's interview lead officials to the capture?
Well, all the Mexican authorities have said is that they were able to track him with the help of interviews that were conducted, or with the help of contact that unnamed movie stars, movie producers had with El Chapo. And I think you have to assume that it's Sean Penn or somebody else there in Mexico who made that contact and who may ultimately have led to his recapture.
Okay, so they're not insinuating that Sean Penn was working with officials, but through Sean Penn's actions, they were able to then follow him and then capture El Chapo.
Right, either tracking somebody's cell phone or in some way leading them to that place. We heard on Friday that somebody in the same neighborhood where El Chapo was staying had complained about somebody with a gun next door at a house, and that the Navy and the Marines moved in, and that's when he was recaptured.
Where was he captured?
He was in Sinaloa State on the western coast of Mexico, not far from, well, in the same area where his drug cartel has operated with pretty much impunity for the last several years, the same area that he came from. So it's not as though he had fled Mexico or fled even the continent. He stayed right there in that same area, protected probably by people that either were intimidated or were well paid to keep their mouths shut.
Did Rolling Stone release this article because he was captured, or were they planning on releasing it Saturday anyway?
Well, I think there were supposed to be further interviews with Guzman, and it would have happened sometime in the future. So I think they were going to try to hold on to this whole thing. But once he was taken into custody, they rushed this thing to press, and voila, the next day it's out on the stands.
How did Sean Penn know and reach out to El Chapo to do the interview?
Well, and look, it may be that it went the other way. I think Guzman has such an enormous ego. He wanted to see his story told on the big screen. So he knew about Sean Penn. He knew that Penn had interviewed Castro, for example. And so it may be that El Chapo actually reached out to Penn through his intermediaries and through media personalities in Mexico. So it may not be that it was done from north to south, but from south to north, McGraw.
Did Sean Penn break any laws? Is he in any trouble for setting up this interview?
Well, federal prosecutors here in the United States tell ABC News that probably not. Now, Mexican authorities may have a different view of that, but at least on this side of the border, it's unlikely that he's going to face any charges. Prosecutors here would much rather see El Chapo, Joaquin Guzman, brought here to this country and put on trial, and perhaps more importantly, held in a U.S. prison where people aren't on his payroll. You know, he's being held, McGraw, in the same prison that he broke out of 6 months ago.
Yeah, he also has broke out of like two other prisons, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is normal for him to sort of break out of prison.
Right. It's not like The Great Escape, that great movie where they're sawing on the bars of the window or digging with spoons.
Right.
I mean, he's got a pretty extensive network of people who are more than happy to help him out, either to collect a big paycheck or to keep from getting killed.
So is he going to be extradited to the U.S.?
Well, they're pushing for that now, and I think negotiations have begun at high levels of both governments to get him here into this country. If it happens, and there's no guarantee, it's still several months away.
Has Sean Penn said anything about any of this?
Well, I mean, other than what's in the article, no.
Yeah.
Right. And so we'll have to see what he has to say about it, whether the contact he was instigated by him or by Guzman.
What a strange story. Jim Ryan, ABC News correspondent in Dallas, following this story. Jim, thanks for checking in.
Wish I had the book rights.
Yeah, I hear you. No question.